I am sat here today with a fabulous Italian double bass by Leopold Noiriel, made in Turin about 1835. And there's a handful of Italian makers that were bass makers and are best known and most important for the basses that they made. So we're very lucky to have a Montagnana and a Gaffrilla and a Bazan and stuff, but there's only like one or so of each of these makers, or like there's an Amati, but there's only like one. So, and they were violin makers, made cellos, violins, violas, and they happened to make a bass. And then you have a few proper bass makers, in the same way that in the English school, Locke, Kennedy, Fent, Panormo, these guys really are best known for their basses and are most highly prized for their basses. There's a handful of Italian makers that are the same. So you've got Rastelli, there's a large number of instruments by him, Arienti, another one very important, and then you've got a couple of real heavyweights in the bass world, which is Noiriel and Santa Giuliana, and obviously, of course, this is Noiriel. I mean, I probably know like 15 basses by him, and they're all in very good condition, actually, which tells you again that he made really healthy instruments. They've all got lots of original varnish, again, which tells you that they didn't go wrong much, because normally the varnish gets ruined when it goes to a bad restorer. So they're very healthy instruments. And they all sound amazing too. I mean, they're really designed to sound. I think the poplar wood that he used on the back and the sides really helped that. So Noiriel, or Leopold Norel is his full name, he was born in Maicourt in 1789. Maicourt is in France, of course, and is a town that's basically violin making and also lace making was the big thing then. So it's the big violin making centre. Although I don't think his father was a violin maker. I think he may have been involved in wine or something else. But Noiriel obviously started violin making, and he worked in Maicourt for a while. Worked in Paris. About 1820, we start to see him in Turin, and he's very good friends with Presenda, and he's on birth certificates and death certificates and things. There's a connection there documented, and he lived like 500 meters away from him, and the same with Rocca. He was friends with him too, and they're all sort of the violin makers in the area. Rocca, actually, we're very lucky to have a few beautiful basses by him, but Noiriel, certainly his early work is very rough. I mean, when it was new, when the instrument was new, they must have looked really something, like very rough. But, you see a progression over, say, 30 years to him making the most beautiful instruments. I mean, wow, they're absolutely stunning. And there's a sweet spot in the middle for me when they're still a little kind of quirky and a little rough, but super interesting and beautiful. And 1835, this is where this instrument is. So the early ones, they're vial shaped, and they very similar sort of characteristic sound hole he uses throughout, with a bit of variation. And no two Noiriels are exactly the same. There's no pattern that you see like they're all the same. They're all a bit different, and you can see that lower bout goes out there. They were very much made sort of free hand, and they're all a bit different. The models are all slightly different, and there'll be ones that are very similar, but if you put two next to each other, they probably wouldn't line up, even if they were very, very, the same sort of model. Yeah, very Presenda-y sort of sound hole, very much that sort of style of Turin. This has got a little fluting down the sound hole wing there, and he's got this wood he's using for the front. It's full of knots. Look, I mean, it's just great. The materials. I guess he was using local materials. And local poplar. Well, I'm going to treat you and show you the back in a minute. This is actually of 3 pieces. So I've seen other ones as well from this same period where actually he's using a central plank. So this has got a central plank, knots everywhere, and this actually hasn't got that many knots. You can see them with more than that. Central plank and 2 pieces at the side. And again, with bass makers, often you find that they use wide purfling, so they were actually actively going to make a bass with bass-size purfling, rather than violins. You sort of violin makers, you can still see cellos and basses with very fine purfling. 1820 viol model, very rough, full of tool marks, and really charming now. But when they were new, they must have looked horrendous. Real characterful making, and it carries on. 1835 he's starting to make violin corners. 1835 he's starting to make violin corner modelled instruments, and the early ones can be unpurfled, and I'll show you the back now. And they can have a bit of a sort of a very deep, a very abrupt edge of the purfling channel, so they almost look like they're purfled, but they're not. This is the early sort of viol type instrument. And you can see them with one piece, poplar back with wings, but you can see this is two pieces. But look at that, isn't that just... I mean, that's as good as it gets. It's just the absolute charm of it is amazing. And the front and back are almost exactly the same shape. There's no break. There's no sort of break here. And the ribs don't really taper either. The way they're finished at the top is very, very Noiriel. The way all this... the back is the same height as the front. Beautiful poplar sides as well, you can see there. Look at that, it's just magnificent. And this wood, soft wood on basses often sounds amazing. So these instruments probably sounded incredible when they were new. And I'm guessing, anybody that from the 19th century that like Noiriel, and Sant'Giuliano, Arienti, Rastelli, these people, anybody that has like 10 basses left, at least, would have made hundreds of basses, or basses in the hundreds, because so many of them didn't survive. Actual proper, correct, verifiable Italian instruments they're super rare, whereas in violins there's tens of thousands. Double basses there's hundreds, like a couple of hundred really good examples that are correct. Of any maker. So any maker like Noiriel that has 10 instruments left made a lot of basses and was a bass maker, and really should be seen as the most important of the Italian instruments. I mean, this is just an absolute stunner. So and I'll show you the back again just because it's so beautiful. A little bit of a like a bit of a purfling channel. This is less abrupt now that he's using purfling, but still quite a definite purfling channel there. Very, very well arched, really just absolutely gorgeous. This is as good as it gets. Now I'm going to show you the head in a sec. That again shows a real progression from this really clubby walnut head, very soft walnut he used, to the very last one is beautiful and looks like Presenda. This is the head, and you see there's got this curved bottom of the peg box here. That's a very, very Noiriel feature. And the early ones are not like that. They have a traditional peg box. And you do see them with traditional peg boxes later too. So he wasn't just completely fixed this idea, and it came to him later. Maybe it was to aid playability or something, so this bit wasn't in the way, I don't know. But he, this curved part of the bottom of the peg box here, absolutely Noiriel. And this, as I was saying, is in the sweet spot. So this is still a little bit roughly carved and very charming in its outlook, but it's meaningful, and it is nicely done, but it's not like super finely finished. And you'll see that it's almost like it slightly goes like squishes itself this way, whereas it should really go that way. And later on examples you'll see go sort of like this, and he used quite soft walnut for the heads, and this one has got nice balance. It's not too narrow. I've seen them before where they're very narrow because he obviously had a narrow bit of wood and that's what he used. I've seen them where one ear is like a centimetre lower than the other. There's also one bass where the one I would say just before this, about 1830, he started to get to this model, and he's made a beautiful job of coming up with the model and doing everything. And then one sound hole is, no word of a lie, is about 5 centimetres lower than the other one. So it shows that he's starting to get the idea of making, and he's starting to become more charming, but he still has this ability to just be absolutely do something completely messy at the same time. And yeah, so this scroll's a really nice, as I said, in the sweet spot. It's not too neat, but it's neat enough that it's correct. And yeah, quite deeply carved. You see them sometimes where this part is like, the distance from here to there is really long. They're just kind of all over the place, and two sides don't necessarily match either. Yeah, this is a really nice. I'll show you the front. Really nice one. Yeah. So yeah, the thing you can tell with Noiriel is the progression of the body, and the progression of the shape and the sound holes, and the quality of the making, and it's exactly the same with the heads. They start very rough and very big, get neater but still full of character, and then they get clinical by the end. One of the most important bass makers of all. This, I think, is one of his best examples of his work of all. It's absolutely just a work of art, really, and it's been a real pleasure to share it with you.